Hi, greetings, friends. Jacque Howard here, and welcome to my podcast. And this is kind of like an introduction. I'm going to be talking to John Bailey of the Capital City Area Black Caucus. But before I do that, I want to make sure that folks, especially in the city of Trenton, recognize the democratic process and that we have elections for mayor and council that are taking place in November this year, not in June. It's in November of 2022. And we have potentially a complete slate of new elected officials. Mayor and council is up for vote. There's been some early communications about folks leaving council to vote, to go for mayor, et cetera. The position that I'm taking here and with Bridge the Vote, as always, is to be unpartisan, unbiased, just to bring information to the community so that the folks are aware of the folks who are their elected officials and those who want to be their elected officials. In addition to that, also encouraging folks to find out information about the policies and the responsibility of each position. Most folks don't understand what the responsibility of the mayor or what the council is. That is clearly spelled out on the City of Trenton's website, and I encourage you to go there for yourself. Don't take anyone's word for it. Go to the website yourself. Read the legal documents and then ask yourself, are the elected officials following the protocol and the procedures and the responsibilities of the position? And if they are, then you do your due diligence. And if not, I encourage you to do your due diligence there as well. We, the 80,000+ people that are in the capital city of New Jersey, all have a responsibility as citizens to be involved in the process of our community. The elected officials oftentimes get put into a position where they're considered to be the pinnacle and the standard, but that is not the way the political structure was done. Again, part of that was designed here in Trenton as well. Take my tour of Trenton and you'll learn more about why I keep saying where George Washington became George Washington. Now it is time for me to bring on John Bailey. John Bailey is a person who's been doing things for many years. He's very connected to many of the folks that have been and are in the political system. Now, I just recently met John. We had a great conversation. I've tuned into some of the Capital City Area Black Caucus events that have been going on online for well over a year. And during these conversations, John is bringing information and allowing access to people that oftentimes can't get to those folks, whether they're high-level executives or they're folks at the state level or they're involved in a political process, and they may not have the connection to the local community. The Capital City Area Black Caucus has been working with people in the community of Trenton, names like Sam Frisbee over at the Capital City Area YMCA formerly, and others in the faith community, in the education community, to bring folks together and to come up with a plan. I don't know exactly what the plan is because, again, I take my position as a spokesperson serious. I try to be as neutral as possible. But when I get opportunities to come and be a part of something, I'd like to come in and hear and find out what's going on and then distribute that information. That is my responsibility. That is me. That's my spot. But I'm bringing on others such as John Bailey so that they can explain to you their spot, their position, their opportunities and what they're trying to achieve. Two things we're going to highlight on this conversation, and we may, if we have time, get back to something else. I know John gave me the permission to just go on about anything, but I have a tendency to do that. I want to make sure I stay within these realms. We're going to be talking about Trenton City Council and Jarrell Blakely's seat. Jarrell Blakely, who is an at-large councilman, has resigned his position. He's seeking other opportunities, so blessings to him. We're going to be talking about the folks and the process for replacing that seat and that person in that seat. And then also about the February 18th event that the Capital Area Black Caucus is part of and that they're putting on. And to get started, I'm going to have John Bailey come in and share a little bit, but folks know that I'm a fashion dude. So John, let's talk about that hat first. Before you introduce yourself, let's talk about that hat and then share a little bit about who John Bailey is.
Well, you know, first of all, Jacque, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with you on the podcast. And I think that the work that you're doing is important because anytime we can communicate and create pathways and opportunities to be more effective and efficient in Trenton and in any municipality, that's aspirational and value added. So thank you for the opportunity.
Blessings. Thank you.
Second, the hat sort of reflects on the whole 1619 question, with anti-Black sentiment, with racism, with white supremacy. One of the things that I try to do is keep on my head, keep in my mind every day. Number one, have a sense of where I am in America. Two, the struggles that we and I, as African Americans, have gone through. And then what is the symbolic representation of the 400-year history that we have in the country? And so 1619 is just a symbolic interpretation of the first encounter of Africans of slave descent, Africans who were slaves then, coming from the motherland, having their first encounter in Jamestown. And so here's an opportunity for us as a community, one, to have a conversation about the 1619, but also look at the fact that from 1619 to 2019, for example, it's not the 400 years or the dates, but it's the dash between the dates. That's our experience. The date 1619, the date 2019, but that dash between the two, that's the whole experiential background of African Americans in this country. And so 1619 gives me an opportunity to sort of talk to folks, engage folks, talk about the fact that every human being on the planet is of African descent. We go back 6 million years to Old Divide Gorge on the African continent and have dispersed over the planet. And so I want us to all realize that we're Africans, and the conversations and the fighting and infighting that we're having right now is against our brothers and our sisters who have been removed from the DNA pool, but still are either ethnically or humanity-wise tied into a very specific origin, and that goes back millions of years.
I'm glad that you went in that direction. Something that I think we don't have a full concept of is looking at the archaeology and saying, hey, what's in the stone? What is the soil saying? When we dig down, the further we go, what is that message that's being said? I say that because I've done a lot of work over the decade or so. I've been doing this media stuff in Trenton, my hometown, and talked to a lot of nonprofits and a lot of nonprofit leaders. And it amazes me the amount of them that aren't looking into the archaeology. And when I say the archaeology, digging into the soil of their organizations. Why is that organization in Trenton? What is the purpose for it in Trenton? How is it being funded in Trenton? Going even deeper, is it a splinter off of another organization? Who founded the organization? And when we take a look around and we look at the architecture, we can see on a lot of the buildings, Bank of, Rider University, State College of, all those different things are right here in Trenton. And even a lot of the buildings that people consider to be abandoned or not worth anything tell a very specific story about that dash. And that dash is what needs to be exposed and shared to the young people, in particular the people who are brown and Black people. I'm saying that because the William Trent House is working on a project to share the details about what, and I don't like saying slaves, but the folks who were enslaved on that property. And I can imagine that the work that you're doing with the Capital City Area Black Caucus has some synergy with the William Trent House. And I know some of the representatives over there have been on the call. A big shout out to Princess. And I'm warmed. I'm warmed that we're having this conversation. And thank you and Sam, thank you for mentioning that we're going to have a longer conversation about this later, because this information is critical that it gets out. John, you did a fantastic job of getting me excited, getting me fired up about the Capital City Area Black Caucus and the work that you're doing. I was amazed by the amount of people and the power, social capital, political power, et cetera, that were amassed in the Capital City Area Black Caucus. Can you talk about bringing folks together, how you do that as an individual and how you've done that over the years, et cetera?
Well, I have a interesting background and interesting history, some of it relevant, some of it not to this particular conversation. But the history and the background relevant to Trenton has to do with the Palmer administration coming in and helping Doug become elected, being the head of recreation in the city, being the national director of Weed and Seed, anti-gang, anti-drugs. And so I've had an opportunity to engage. Part of the Weed and Seed piece was community order policing, violent offenders removal, neighborhood revitalization, and safe haven. So not only did it give me an opportunity to work with folks on some real significant issues, gaining ground issues that we need to be looking at in our city, it also gave me the influence, being a director of Weed and Seed, the head of recreation, to be able to bring an integration of programs and resources under the mayor's vision, which at that time was a new vision for Trenton. Well, we are now, many years later, 2, 3 mayors later, and something has happened, something has changed. And so part of what I wanted to do was to be part of the next vision. And I got involved with the current mayor, helped run his campaign, helped him become elected. And then after that, Sam, myself, Janine LaRue, Doug Palmer, Tracy Syfax, John Raines, John Harmon, folks like that, sat down and had a conversation about we can do better. We can make the city better. How do we use each of us, to whom much has been given? How can we use our time and talent and resources to be able to move not only in the best interest of trying to lift up Capital City Area Black Caucus, but how can we do that to make sure that we impact the citizens in the city of Trenton? Our kids are at the bottom of the well. There's no economic development opportunity. We need to deal with the voting issue. We need to make sure that our nonprofits are stable. We need to make sure that the city is not only mentally healthy, but physically healthy. And so that required, again, some people who had time, talent, and resources, again, to whom has much been given, much is expected. And so there was an expectation that we needed to do more. And part of doing more and being more in this environment was, one, creating this organization, and then trying to bring Black elected officials, community organizations, concerned citizens, corporate leader to the table to talk about what is in the best interest of the citizens, and then what can the future of the city look like? Because I'm a firm believer of the bridge. What Trenton makes, the world takes. And so I think that it's important that if we're all part of the city and having some success in the city, then we all have a contribution, including those who may not think that they're doing well. We all have a contribution and a role to play. And not think that, we spend a lot of times beating up individuals, nonprofits, the city itself, but success runs in our race. And this city deserves an opportunity as a capital city. And all these people in the city who look like me or who don't look like me, some of them are doing good work. And we need to lift them up and encourage them to continue to do the work. And those who have the finger pointing attitude, or those who are naysayers, come join the movement. Come join the positive and aspirational and inspirational efforts to cross a bridge and do something very good for everybody in the town.
I'm speaking with John Bailey of the Capital City Area Black Caucus. I'll be sharing the details about how you can get in contact with the organization, be a part of what's happening there, and support it. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to them directly. Podcasts are enough time to get general information and to stimulate you to take a step. I think that is something that a lot of folks don't do. They listen, but they don't take that step. And I want us to encourage folks to do that. John, you said something that was really different than what I've heard. I'm often used to hearing people say, if you're with me, cool. But if you're not with me, get out the way, kind of thing. And I'm probably guilty of saying that as well. In fact, I will say that I probably said that as well. But you made it very clear that you want it to be, come join us. Come listen and hear for yourself. which I think is something that a lot of folks don't recognize as an option. Just because you're coming to listen, coming to observe, coming to hear, coming to learn, it doesn't mean that you are completely locked into this. You're just coming for the general information. And I think that we as a society here in Trenton in particular, so many folks are so disenfranchised with what has been going on and is going on that they don't even want to take that step to come and say, let me just hear what they're talking or about or what the meeting is about. They'd rather say, oh, it's just going to be the same thing. Nothing's going to change. These people are this or those people are that. I'd like for you to speak directly to those folks who they're just done. They're fed up. They're completely disenfranchised. Can you just speak to them a little bit?
Well, part of that history, the drama and the trauma that those folks have engaged in is historically. And so that means that after attempting to listen and do the right thing, and folks didn't deliver on those commitments or those promises, it soured folks. And folks like us, we believe. And when you tell us something, either at the church or our teachers in school or even our parents, we believe. And so when we find out that that belief system has been compromised or that what we've been told is not true, that becomes a problem. And in Trenton, we were told that they'd fix the potholes. They were told that they'd fix getting the trash done, that we would deal with the abandoned buildings, that we would deal with trying to make sure that our kids got a quality education. And there's been obstruction there. That's a vision, but the citizens and our leadership have a responsibility to bring the connectivity between the vision and the work. And that hasn't been happening. And so there's a sense of frustration because our elected official types and others have made commitments to the citizens and we have not lived up to that commitment. And so I have to own that. You know what I mean? I, as someone who knows better, I have to own that. And I have to encourage others who know better to do what's in the best interest of everybody else. And then those who don't know, we have a position and a commitment to educate them about what it is that they don't know, so that if we're never around, they're in a position to make informed decisions by themselves, rather than us making those decisions for them. I'm a firm believer that you can fish for people, and they'll always come for you to feed them. But if you teach them how to fish, then they don't need to come to you to be fed. They can go fish for themselves. As a matter of fact, if they're good folks, they're gonna share the fish with you.
Hey, that's what we're talking about. There's room for us all. I am pretty much on the record of always talking about there's no competition. I'm satisfying my soul. I'm doing what I believe I'm supposed to be doing right where I am. And with that being the case, this is God-given, this is ordained. So the competition, the mindset of all that stuff, it doesn't matter. It's not here. And I think that many of us have the ability to get to that space. And I believe that there are many who do, who are in that space. They just,
Jacque, this is a sports town. And because it's a sports town, there's a certain competition. And what happens is that, as a sports town, and this is a value add, this is a plus, we can use that competition if we focus our intentions correctly. We can use that competitive spirit to try to get things done. What happens is we get caught up in the competition, then we get caught up in the name calling, and then we get caught up in crabs in the barrel, and then we get caught up in a whole lot of stuff that pulls us apart rather than pulls us together. And so somebody has to do that work. And I'm not trying to come off as a hero, but we need more folks who are doing heroic things for our community. And it's just not for our community. We need to do this for our kids, man.
Hey, there we go.
Our kids need to know that we're moving in their best interests every day. Because if they don't know, then they see us as strangers. And if there's ever a situation where I got to compete and I got to eat, then I may knock a stranger in the head, you know what I mean, to get money to feed myself. But if I know that that person is family, then what I might do is say, listen, bro, can you help me? Rather than knocking you in the head and taking from you, I might be able to sit down and talk with you, and you may see that I'm authentic, doing the right thing. I just need a little bit of help. And that's kind of how we have to approach this situation, because we have not been doing it as much. We've done it because we have a history of success running in our race and good things happening. But we are further behind now in the areas of social progress, housing, healthcare, economic opportunity, public safety, education, attainment. We're further behind now than before the civil rights movement. And so that means that public policy, our own efforts, not paying attention, not staying woke, this is all part of what's going on. So the predicament we find ourselves in is partially ours. We're not going to blame it on white folks all the time, because then we're waiting for them to solve the situation. I'm not waiting for anybody to solve the situation for me. That is my responsibility, and it's the responsibility of folks in my community who have the wherewithal to contribute. And then one other thing, we're in a very chaotic and confused time period. And part of that has to do with the fact that the folks are trying to eliminate our history, trying to act like we never existed, trying to act like 1619 and slavery never happened. And so we're creating an insane, mentally unhealthy society, especially with our white brethren, because that's the lie that they're perpetuating not only to the mass society, but they're spending an inordinate amount of time misleading their kids. And so you end up with a evolving white youth population that is highly confused, does not trust the society, and now in a position where they may not be able to trust their parents because their parents are not being authentic with them relative to what's going on in the world.
John, I want to jump right in there. Oftentimes this happens where the energy is flowing in a direction. I am 53 years old, and I grew up in Ewing Township in public schools, and it was a very diverse community. And I've seen over the last 4 or 5 plus years that many of the people who are my age, who would have never taken these positions and these stands on the politics, the classism, the racism, definitely not in the faces of people who don't look like them, but they feel empowered to do that. And I think that you nailed it by saying that they are of the population that was told the lie the most, that you're best, you're number one, no one can beat you, this is the greatest, on and on and on. And as they've gotten to a space, they've realized that, hey, maybe that's not so true. Maybe the things that I'm interested in, or me at my job, I'm not the best. So it's created this animosity and this anger. And I say that because I've had conversations with people that I've known all my life, who now all of a sudden decide that they want to go in a progressively different way than
Now, white or black?
we are. White.
White or black or both? What?
White.
Well, go back to the civil rights movement. White folks didn't believe that the dogs were biting us and that we were disappearing at night and got hit in the head until they saw it on TV. That changed the dynamics. Then there was a whole question that white folks didn't feel like black folks were getting shot in the back or getting shot in cars until they saw it on Facebook. Social media played in. So as the technology comes forward, information comes forward, more information than you have been able to historically comprehend, and it's coming at you at a rapid pace. And so being able to know the history of the use of the technology and how the message got out and how we educate folks. And then we look at the TV and Black Lives Matter in the last 2 summers in terms of the number of white folks who were out in the street, recognizing that not only did Black Lives Matter, but Black lives were in jeopardy. And part of that has to do with the fact that not that group, but the 49% of the population that supported Trump began to see that, not only was their message coming out that emboldened and made Black folks feel good about themselves, right? But they were also beginning to see, and this is what really bothers them, that the world, the white world, that they had been used to managing, manipulating, positioning, the white world is no longer the same. And so the message that's going on in their mind is that the end of the white world is near. And that has caused them to panic, to lie to themselves, to lie to their kids, to do things that are illegal. And the strange part about it, going all the way down to South Carolina, the presidential debate, going all the way back to Watergate, going all the way back to January 6th, it's been Black folks who have been saving this society, this elusive democracy. It's been us that have been helping y'all understand, and I'm talking to all of us, Black, white, and brown, men, women, LGBT, and others. It is up to us, all of us. But the Black folks are at the lead of that because historically, we understand what has happened and needs to happen. It needs to move us forward as human beings in this society. And just like democracy is elusive, social equity is elusive. Mm-hmm. And a lot of white folks out here running social equity, but they're using historical Black misery as social equity talking point and not really understanding, that where we are as a people has to do with our story. We don't need you to tell our story. We don't need you to hyphenate history and say whoever talks about history and writes history writes it in their own image. Well, we're mature. We're different folks. We're much more 21st century. We are, in fact, space Africans who are here looking in the 21st century, knowing where we're supposed to go. And that bothers a lot of folks because we're not running around worried about, does boss know? The hell with boss. You know what I mean? Where it is that, does our people know? And then how do we go about making sure that all of them know? And we do this in the best interest of trying to come up with a generation of young folks who have the ability to make progressive decisions, to continue the legacy and all of the success that we've done in the midst of being in a situation where we've been highly traumatized, unbelievable drama, but we're still here.
Amen. My man. John, I can't wait to have more conversations with you. This has been very enlightening and stimulating. Oftentimes in my conversations, I let my spirit lead me, and sometimes it gets me off track of what the paper says that I should be doing. So I'm going to get back to the paper because we have some work that we need to do.
Right.
We need to talk about Councilman Jarrell Blakely and his resignation and him leaving with less than a year in the position. So there's some questions about, what do we do with the seat? I know there's people who don't know the protocol and the procedures, but there is a plan that's in place. And I'd like for you to talk about it from your perspective and also mention some of the other folks that you'd like to be considered in filling the seat for Jarrell Blakely, who's resigning.
Okay. To be authentic, Jacque, that's yesterday's news.
Amen. All right.
Today's news is that City Council last night have selected somebody. Okay. And so what the Capital City Area Black Caucus did was to just float 4 names of some folks that we thought would be helpful. But there are some other folks out here that we could have very easily increased that to 24 names. You know what I mean? But what we're trying to do is to make a message and send a message to the populace and to council that this is not a rush decision. This is not something you need to do in secret. This is something you need to be very authentic about because historically, you as a council have done some very disruptive and obstructive things that have made it so that the communication between council, i.e. the city and the people has been skewed, blurred, all right? Now, last night you go into council meeting and you don't have the name of the person. What you have is a secretive type of situation where, the people don't know until the decision's been made. And so while, I think Sonia Wilkins, who they selected, it was an interesting choice, I think this council better take into consideration that Sonia Wilkins is also a woman of integrity. And so hopefully she doesn't get caught up in the BS and the nonsense that have been part of the last 2.5, 3 years as we go into this 8 months, because one of the things that she has to realize is that if she wants to stay there, she's going to have to do something different than the other folks. And if she supports the nonsense that is going on, this will be an 8-month move for her, because folks need to also realize that there's a difference between being on the outside and talking about what's not happening and being on in the arena and having to make decisions. That's a complete difference. And so while I appreciate the work that Jarrell put in, but I also understand the fact that everybody's got to eat. And so he got an opportunity to do something in another state, and God bless him and Godspeed, and go do that well. What this council is going to have to deal with is that they cannot continue to be obstructing the positive vision that this mayor or that the citizens have for everything that's going on. They have to, and if you don't have any plans yourself, then don't beat up the mayor's plans, you know what I mean? But if you were a serious city council, then you would come up with your own plans about how we move the city forward rather than knocking down everything that happens. So we put forward some names. Yes, Nelly Gonzalez, Tracy Syfax, Pastor Taylor, there's somebody else that we put forward, Gene Bowie, but we could have put Jeanette Smart in there. We could have put Kaja Mannion in there. We could have put any of the candidates, Crystal Feliciano, Teska Frisbee, any of those candidates who were running should have been considered. But because they weren't, that's water under the bridge. These candidates now have to continue to do their due diligence and run a good race, be effective. But I'm cautioning all of them. When you have a problem with current council and a whole bunch of you decide to individualize, run at large, run West Ward, part of a matured Black community political approach would have been to sit down and figure out who is the strongest candidate. Run one that can win. If it's at large, run 3 that can win. If it's in the West Ward, run 1, East Ward 1, South Ward 1 that can win, rather than running 17 who will then split up the vote, which then allows for the current incumbent that's been problematic to return and continue to be a problem. And so there's a certain sophistication that goes with one having a sense of where you are, who you are, how much it's going to cost, do you have the wherewithal? And I think that, you know, folks here get caught up in a certain arrogance that makes them think that they know and they're ready to run without really having done the research, the deep dive to see if they have all of the pieces to come forward and be a formidable candidate that can win an election in the city of Trenton, where the mayor's race was 10,000 last time around. The current, the just passed Mercer County Commissioner's race had 10,000 votes come out the city. Yet the next year will be, this year will be midterm, and that usually ranges from anywhere from 10 to 15 and maybe 18 sometime. When Barack Obama ran for president, we got almost 25,000 votes out of the city of Trenton. So it's there. It goes back to a point that you raised. You got 25,000 or more, and then 10,000 comes out in a city election or significant election. That shows that the people are not interested in the candidates and messages that resonated. And we as leaders need to do a better job of letting the people know that we're here doing that work. And we just can't show up when it's election time. We need to be there 24/7, 365 for 4 years, doing what the people of the city of Trenton need. And the reason we need to do that, because they deserve that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. John, thank you so much for that. Transitioning, the February 18th event. Can you go and speak some details about that?
Well, really, it's 18th and 19th. And it's not just the city of Trenton. It's not just Mercer County, it's New Jersey, it's the country. And so what I'm encouraging is folks who have caucuses like Capital City Area Black Caucus around the country, in New Jersey in particular. I'm reaching out to, or we are reaching out to, not me, but collectively, we're reaching out to the governor, the legislators. As you know, there are new leadership in the Senate. You know, we have folks who have ascended to new leadership on the Mercer County Commission. And so we're trying to bring all those folks together throughout the state, NAACP, Salvation and Social Justice, Institute of Social Justice, all of them, John Harmon and the African American Chamber, to talk about where are we as a people and where are our cities and what do we need to be doing as leaders to connect to what it is that our people need in these cities and these neighborhoods throughout the state of New Jersey. And so we're calling on our folks to come together. We're going to recognize our leadership. We're going to identify some gaining ground panels in education, economic development, health, housing. We're going to have a Black Leadership Forum on hot topics that would include things like cannabis and things like that, because the revenue stream for cannabis alone in New Jersey could be hundreds of millions of dollars. My concern there, and I'll just use this as a quick segue, is that we have not been authentic with folks about really what's going on. I mean, we're going to put 70% of the revenue into municipalities impacted by the war on drugs, but we're taking 30% of that revenue, we're going to put it into law enforcement. Well, if that's the case, and we're talking about defunding and refunding and reallocating and adjusting public safety in this country and this state, you can't put $70 million into 5 cities over 5 years, and then put $130 million, $150 million into police to make sure that they can engage those citizens differently. If you take my money over here, all you're doing is giving it back to me with the cannabis dollars, number one. Number two, the governor's come out and talked about the number of jobs that are going to be available in that area. All right, that, you know, it's going to be a groundswell of jobs. But what he didn't say is that everybody who works in the cannabis industry has to get a badge. Who's going to be the one who certifies? Who creates the criteria for that? Is the Cannabis Regulatory Commission? So there are many more questions and answers just on that. But the fact that we've made the decisions and we've legalized it shows that if we continue to be vigilant, stay woke, raise the hard social equity questions, there's going to be an opportunity. And we need to take a look at the fact that Cory Booker has said, I'm not going to deal with safe banking until we deal with social justice. That's leadership. And so I'm, you know, we're looking at all of those different aspects. We're going to bring in, hopefully bring in the Assembly Leader, Craig Coffin. We're going to look to bring in the new head of the Senate, President Nick Story. And then, you know, we hope to have a major keynote speaker, the governor, Stacey Abrams, or somebody like that. But we're going to have an art show. We're going to, you know, it's going to be music, but it's going to be an opportunity to bring us together to talk about what we know about what we know, to talk about what we know about what we don't know, and then to also talk about the actions that need to be taken to close that gap. And then how do we move forward as elected officials, understanding what the people need and how we use our position and influence to make that happen.
Amen on that. John Bailey of the Capital City Area Black Caucus, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to hearing more about what the caucus is doing, spend some more time with you, and to also make sure that we continue to build upon this democratic society that we have in Trenton specifically, but also throughout the world. John, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Jacque. And I really appreciate this. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing. We need this type of communication. I mean, this reminds me of the old Newark station, WNJR. And the guys come on, and there was a segment in that called The People Speaks. And you are giving the people an opportunity to speak, to share their perspective, to share their visions, to share their mindset, their aspirations. I can't tell you at this point how important that is. And so feel good about what you're doing. Feel good about what IMG is doing. I was proud to be your guest this morning.
Awesome. John Bailey, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you and those kind words, and I will take those forward as motivation and edification. Thank you, sir.
All right, Jacque, and good luck and look to see you soon.
You're welcome, sir.
Bye-bye.
And folks, there it is. Just another conversation with another engaged human being that's looking to build a better community for everyone. I hope that you'll take your time to reach out to John Bailey at the Capital City Area Black Caucus. The information will be on the link as well. But until we reach and meet and chat again, remember, it's always about justice, peace, and humility.